So President Trump's attacks on the Fed escalating today with new calls for a Fed governor to step down. At the center of that demand, accusations that the woman you see here, Fed Governor Lisa Cook, committed mortgage fraud. Cook saying in a statement tonight that she learned about the allegations from the media and that she has no intention of being bullied into stepping down from her position. The president writing on Truth Social, quote, "Cook must resign now." The Fed and DOJ declining our request for comment on the accusations. It is just the latest move from the administration in its campaign to basically remake the Fed as they try to get the central bank to lower interest rates. Cook was appointed by the Fed board by then President Biden in 2022. And just last month, Cook voted with a majority of her colleagues to keep interest rates steady. Christine Romans is joining us now. So I think this kind of fits into this broader pattern, right, Christine, that we've seen from the president and his allies to target political rivals. And the turnover is happening a lot faster than we have seen in previous administrations. But with that, is there any validity to the accusations the president is making here when it comes to mortgage fraud?
Well, his housing chief, Bill Pulte, went on CNBC this morning and said that he told the anchors of CNBC that he had shown them her mortgage documents. He'd faxed or given them her mortgage documents, the same ones that he had sent on to Attorney General Pam Bondi for a criminal referral, he said, saying that she had misled on those documents about where her primary residence was so that she could get a more favorable mortgage rate. And he said, under no circumstances should someone be helping determine mortgage rates who has not been 100% fair about their own mortgage documents. Here's a little bit of what he said.
I'll tell you this. Jay Powell, he has a chance to do the right thing by the law. I mean, this is just, this is common sense what he needs to do here.
So he's saying that he has referred this and that she should not have that job. That would then open up a new position for the president to appoint maybe somebody who sees more eye with him on rates. And I should say, we do not have any proof that there was any wrongdoing here. Right. But you're right that this administration has gone after people on this particular subject before. And, of course, critics of the president's stance on this would say, well, he has been convicted of fudging numbers related to real estate himself, so that there's a sort of a rich irony there.
So amidst all this, you've also got these new filings from the Office of Government Ethics showing the president actually bought more than $100 million in bonds since January. Is this problematic? Is there any conflict of interest here?
I mean, it's just never been done before. This is a president that we can see is growing his fortune, and his family is, too, while he's in office, and mixing business and the office of the presidency. And by that, I mean, for example, some of the policies that he is enacting could affect the things that he's buying. He bought $103 million, at least, worth of corporate and municipal bonds, 690 different purchases. He's actively managing and buying into trading here. Now, the White House wouldn't tell us if there's a money manager doing this for him, under what circumstances it is here. But we know it is, Jimmy Carter, who sold his family peanut farm so that he would be out of the business of his personal fortune and only doing the business of the United States people, of the American people. That's a totally different kind of situation. We're so far away from that right now. The president is in crypto. The president went to Scotland to open a new property in one of his golf courses, and then on the side was doing, trade talks with the Europeans. It's just a very, very nothing illegal, but it really smashes precedent.
Yeah, certainly changed the game. Christine Romans, as always, thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.